What's going on YouTube? Stormwolf here, and welcome back to another Skyrim Mods video. I do apologize for the wait, as I had a couple of other videos planned, but I saw the potential of this particular mod, and I wanted to do a separate video for this one instead of trying to lump it together with the other mods that I was going to cover. This one is simply called Valhalla Combat, and what Valhalla Combat aims to do is pretty much add a scriptless version of a combat overhaul. What I mean by that is going to add certain mechanics that you might have seen from other mods, but make it a little bit more easier to add to a vanilla game or even a modified game. It adds features such as a time blocking mechanic, easier executions, and the ability to block projectiles, whether it come from arrows or magic. More details obviously will be within the video, and if you want to check out the mod yourself, I will leave a link in the description down below. And if you enjoy the videos, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification icon, so that way you are notified whenever I do upload videos, whether it be a mod video or my continued playthrough series, right now going through Glamorrow. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you towards the end. The first mod we're going to be taking a look at today is called Valhalla Combat. What Valhalla Combat aims to do is a script-free combat overhaul that will pretty much bring Skyrim up to modern combat standards, whether you're playing in first person or third person. It adds things that are pretty relevant in games such as Assassin's Creed Valhalla, God of War, and Elden Ring. One of the changes that Valhalla Combat makes is the way that light attacks work. Now each light attack will take a small portion of stamina until you run out of stamina. Once you run out, your attacks will do 50% less damage, but you can still attack. However, if you do hit your enemies with the attack, you can also regain your stamina, kind of playing a risk versus reward. You can still swing wildly and you will still be able to attack once you run out of stamina, but it's more viable to actually make sure that your attacks hit, so that way you can kind of regain your stamina, so that way you can use power attacks. The power attack function hasn't really changed in this edition of the mod. I'm not exactly sure if it is going to change. I think that the way that it's balanced out is fine, and I actually really do like this, especially if you're playing someone that uses a lot of like faster attacks such as twin blades and things like that. You're going to run out of stamina a lot more quickly if you're just swinging wildly. However, with this change, you'll also be a little bit more viable if your attacks are consistently hitting enemies. The next change that the mod makes is when it comes to blocking. There are 3 new types of blocking that has been introduced within the Valhalla Combat mod. The first is time blocking, the second is time block penalty, and the third is projectile blocking. The first is the time block or the perfect block. If you've played games like Skyrim Shadows Die Twice, you may be familiar with this mechanic. Essentially, you'll have a time frame to which you can block with a weapon or a shield, and you perform something called a time block or a perfect block. If you perform this correctly, you'll be able to stun your opponent for a short amount of time, as well as regain all of your stamina. By default, the timing of this window is 0.15 seconds, but you can adjust that within the MCN menu. Performing the perfect block will also negate all incoming physical and enchanted damage. So a small correction, this isn't necessarily a second type of blocking, it's more so a punishment for missing your timed or perfect block. This is called time block penalty. Failing to perform a time block will add 1 layer of a time block window penalty, which reduces your next time block window by a small amount. These penalties can stack up if you repeatedly fail to form a time block or a perfect block within a short amount of time. Once you stop blocking for every 0.5 seconds, 1 level of the penalty is removed. Performing 1 successful time block resets all of the penalties. So the way you can look at it is if you're not really getting the timing down correctly, you can stop and reset yourself by not blocking, or you can try and go for that extra perfect time block to reset the time block penalty. And the final type of blocking that's been introduced is the projectile block and deflect. So this means that you can pretty much block any type of projectile in the game, be it an arrow or a fireball. The way that it works for arrows is that if you time it correctly, you will do a deflect, which means that you will deflect it out of the way and you will not take any damage. Now the window for this is not as big, I believe, as it is for melee combat. I may have to do a little bit more testing, but it works as you would expect from something such, again, like Sekiro, where if you can block the arrow or you perfect time it, you'll do no damage. It's actually really useful. I wouldn't recommend using a mod that slows down projectiles. I think the projectile speed in vanilla Skyrim is pretty good for this type of mechanic, because you don't want it to go too slow to where you can miss your timing. But it works fairly well, and once you get the timing down, it's pretty easy to block at least bow and arrows. Crossbows I know shoot maybe a little bit faster, but also has like a slower reload time, but it's all about timing nonetheless. As far as spells go, whenever you block a spell, you have a chance to deflect it. By deflecting it, you can send it back to the user, doing a small amount of damage to them. However, the difference between blocking a projectile and blocking a melee attack is that blocking a projectile will take away your magic instead of your stamina. So if you don't have high magicka, you won't be able to deflect projectiles for too long. So it's a good balance to try and build up a little bit of magicka if you're looking to always deflect magic spells, arrows, and things of that nature. And the final addition to the mod is the stun and execution system. So what the stun and execution system is a similar stun system to God of War and AC Valhalla. It gives NPCs a new stun gauge. You'll have to have True HUD installed to see it, but whenever you deplete the stun gauge, you'll have a chance to execute your target. You can do this in one of two ways. You can have a automatic execution, meaning sort of similar to vanilla Skyrim, to where at a certain point you will automatically execute the target, or you can set a hotkey in the MCN menu to where if they're depleted, you can press the hotkey and it will go through with the execution. It is a little buggy sometimes, even though that the stamina gauge has been depleted. It sometimes doesn't register as an execution. You may have to back off and re-enter sort of like in the cone of the enemy, I guess, if that makes sense, to execute the execution. I really like this mechanic, and it's a lot easier to kind of like single out a strong opponent, and you can weaken them with the stun gauge and then finish them off. The way that the stun gauge gets depleted is any type of attack, a deflection, or a perfect block. All those mechanics will deplete the stun gauge, giving you the opportunity to execute a target. This also works, I believe, with boss enemies as well, as they too have a stun gauge meter, but theirs is obviously going to be a little bit higher because it's going to be based on their level, their equipment, their health, so on and so forth. The mod also does come with its own MCM menu, so you can make a lot of adjustments, such as the timing for the perfect block, whether you want to block with stamina until your stamina runs out, then start blocking with the health, so on and so forth. So I do encourage you to go through the MCM menu and kind of play around and adjust the settings to your liking. Alright, thank you for watching the video. As I mentioned earlier, this is the only mod we're going to be showcasing today because I think it has a lot of utility to it, to where I wanted to make my own separate video for it. If you did enjoy the mod, please go ahead and hit the like button, as well as endorse the mod over on the mod page. Be sure to also read throughout the mod page, as there are a couple of mods that are compatible with this mod, as well as a list of incompatible mods that do the same functions as Valhalla Combat, so having those mods installed will cause issues in your game. If you want to check out any of my past content, I did also make a Fallout 4 mod video a couple of days ago, as well as an ongoing series of me playing through a lot of quest mods, using some of these mods in the future for my Skyrim playthrough series. Right now I am in the halfway point of Glamorrow if you want to check that out. I've also done a couple of other mods as well, such as Vigilant and Tales of Mercy, so definitely recommend to check those out if you want to watch some playthrough footage of a couple of mods that I showcase on the channel. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Please subscribe and hit the bell notification icon, and let me know what you think of the mod in the comments down below, and I'll catch you next time. Take care.